what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv. My name is Alan. Across from me at our podcast recording studio table is Chris.
Hello, listeners, all 2, 4, maybe 10 of you.
We're batting, who knows, somewhere between
numbers.
5 and 1,000. That's what we know we have right now.
Okay, I can take
It's a
that.
pretty wide range we're dealing with. So, however many of you are listening, welcome back.
I'm going to go with
joining.
721.
I think that sounds like a perfect estimate. That's
Sounds
almost exactly what I was going to say, too.
Okay.
Regardless of how many of you are out there listening, thank you. We're welcoming you back. This is Footcandle Films. This is our show on themesh.tv where we talk about films, talk about movies. Generally, the format of the show is as follows. We have 1 to 2 films that we will review and discuss. We'll have some movie news to share as well. And Chris and I do a little ping pong back and forth with some news items. And then we both wrap up the show with our recommendation for the episode, a movie or something that we feel like you ought to be checking out if you're not already. So, Chris, today we have 2 big science fiction blockbuster films to review, which is a little odd for us. Most of our times we integrate some independent, smaller films. Well, today, not so much. We have the latest iteration of Ghostbusters,
Right.
the Paul Feig written and directed film starring a slew of very, very funny and talented women. And then we have the next version of the Star Trek franchise, Star Trek Beyond.
Correct.
This time, instead of being directed by J.J. Abrams, we are actually treated to the directorial efforts of Mr. Justin Lin. So that's our 2 films. Then we're going to do our news. Then we'll do our recommendations at the end of the show. Ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get into our first review, which is the film Ghostbusters.
We have dedicated our whole lives to studying the paranormal. Now there's sightings all over the city. There are people out there that need our help. Holtzman, you're a brilliant engineer. Aaron, no one's better at quantum physics than you. We can provide a real service.
I'm joining the club. You guys are really smart about this science stuff, but I know New York. And I can borrow a car from my uncle.
You didn't disclose that the vehicle was going to be a hearse.
It's a Cadillac!
Chris, I know your feelings on the original 1984 Ghostbusters. I know you love it.
I've recommended it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your Letterboxd rating. I know how you feel. We've talked about it, and I'm in the same boat. It is one of my top 20 films. I just love Ghostbusters. Not only did it hit for me at just the right time, age-wise, where I just really liked the fact that it was a little scary.
Right.
Very funny.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was a good special effects science fiction film at the time. It just worked. It was just worked on so many different planes when it came out. And it's still one of those classics I could pop on anytime and still laugh along with it. I was trepidatious when I heard that they were going to be rebooting or remaking or whatever they decide to call it, Ghostbusters.
Right.
You and I had a conversation a few episodes ago about some of the online clamor around the fact that it was 4 females doing this. Now,
Right.
personally, I could not care less. And I happen to think that these 4 women are very, very funny. I've seen them all do things in different films that I thought were really, really good, or on Saturday Night Live or other shows. So that's the least of my worries. That's not even a worry at this.
Sure.
I honestly went into this wondering, is this going to be just a complete rehash of the 1984, or are they going to try to do something different, not gender related? You know,
Gotcha.
Instead of just dropping in 4 women, are we going to just have 4 women being Ghostbusters, and that's that? But it's the same thing we had in 84. So that's really where I want to start the conversation. You know, was there a point to making this Ghostbusters other than to have just 4 females in the lead? Do you see this as something that has any film merit that has added to our film culture as an overall, other than just the fact that, hey, there's 4 women as Ghostbusters now?
Right. I mean, I think, we had talked about the whole controversy, and you and I are both on the same page that we don't care if it was 4, stalks of broccoli doing Ghostbusters. It doesn't,
which I hear that's next on the production slate. Yeah.
Make a good movie, and it doesn't matter how you want to reinterpret it. Do I think that it needed to be reinterpreted? Well, I would have never thought Toy Story needed 3 versions of it, but they ended up, and they were good. Because it's kind of like, where can you go? The toys know that trying to be real or what? Who knows? And when I heard they were going to make, they made a second Ghostbusters. A lot of people didn't like it. I have not revisited that one, unfortunately, but I remember not being as cranky about it as everybody else. Like I thought it was okay. But there again, okay. I haven't seen it in a really long time. Yeah. So when a lot of people were clamoring for new Ghostbusters, Ramis died.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was kind of when okay, maybe we're not going to do anything. And then it was like, well, Bridesmaids had come along and Paul Feig, and they're like, okay, this is our new idea. And they said 4 females. I was like, if you're going to redo it, why not just forget all the old stuff and bring this in and do it?
Sure.
So, and then we had all the internet controversy. So I totally get why they do it. I mean, you want to make money. You have this, what could be a franchise. I get it. I am saddened, however, that I really thought this movie was pathetic.
Really?
And it gives me absolute, a lot of times I come in here and I'm like, if I really didn't like a movie, I kind of enjoy railing on it just because it makes for an interesting podcast discussion. If Alan and I always agreed, that'd be kind of boring.
Right.
I really was sad at how let down I was by this movie. Not that I thought it was going to be perfect or anything, but and it has nothing to do with the 4 female leads. It has nothing to do with that.
Well, tell me why.
I feel like it was just lazy.
Okay, well, tell me why.
The movie was lazy.
Well, tell me why you feel that way.
Okay. So
we don't. We're just
I have a list, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you
normally,
have a list? Wow.
We try to do, but since you've asked me,
no.
Do we want to do positives? Because I can do. I'd like to try to focus on what I thought was good about the film.
I'll tell you this. I have a more positive opinion of this film than you do. I thought it was passable entertainment. Now that's faint praise. I said passable, and what I mean by that is I can sit for an hour and 56 minutes and watch this movie and not feel like at the end of the time I didn't feel like I wasted my time. I was disappointed.
We're different in that.
Okay, I was disappointed in many, many aspects. Let me be very clear about that.
Okay.
I'm sure the list you have, I can probably echo most of them as well. Where I came out of this, Chris, is that I really tried hard to say to myself, if there was not a 1984 Ghostbusters starring Bill Murray, directed by Harold Ramis, if that never existed, how would I feel about this film? And the fact of the matter is, I would like this film a whole lot better if the 1984 one didn't exist. I think where this film really bombs out is when it tries to reference the 84 version. Every instance of them doing that, I think, falls flat all the way through the film.
Okay.
So that's I guess I'm saying I came out of it more positive and saying I thought it was adequate. I thought for someone who had never seen the 84 version, they probably would enjoy this film. It is lazy. There is a lot of sloppy writing in it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was enjoyable. However, I have to be able to carve out the 84 and say, forget about that altogether for me to actually even say it's passable entertainment.
Well, okay. So
what positives did you pull from it? Let's do that.
Because, man, this is... Okay. Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
I've gone on record saying before that I like him, which I'd never expected a guy playing Thor. I would find that amazing or interesting or whatever.
Yeah.
This just convinces me that I will probably see almost anything he's in because I really like him that much. And his role in the comedy with him, and, granted, the Kristen Wiig and the other, Melissa McCarthy, Kate McKinnon, all the people, they're there in the scenes with him. It's not him just doing it alone. So they're having to feed off one another. But for somebody who's not known to be a comedic actor, they are supporting him doing the comedy. But those were the best parts of this movie for me. Whenever he was on screen and the going back and forth between them, yes, he's an airhead secretary guy, and they hire him because obviously he looks handsome and all that kind of stuff. But that was the funniest stuff about this movie.
Okay.
The other stuff
I agree.
wasn't funny to me, didn't work, and I think it could suffer from a little bit of, if you're not making an action comedy, if it's just a comedy where you can kind of have loose writing, have a lot of improv, which, apparently Bridesmaids probably did, and some of the other movies that Paul Feig's done, they use a lot of improv. And in this instance, to me, it just really didn't work, except for the secretary scenes. For whatever reason, maybe because they were more reined in. I don't know.
Well,
But-
you almost get the impression, just like the interview scene with Kevin, you almost get the impression that scene was, let's sit down and here's some general ideas of where we want this conversation to go. Girls, ladies, and Mr. Hemsworth, just have at it.
Right.
And they probably went for a few hours recording different riffs on things and got kind of an ad-lib version of something. That had the
Right.
most Paul Feig type of dialogue scene to it, like reminded me of Bridesmaids a lot more, was that scene with the interview. Because it's really 3 or 4 of them sitting around the table just talking about several different topics. So I agree with you. I thought his role was really, really well done. I thought it was funny.
And maybe that's why that is the part that worked, because that is in Mr. Feig's wheelhouse, whereas action scenes are not.
Scenes don't lend themselves to ad
Science fiction.
and kind of riffing.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, anytime you've got special effects you're dealing with and big action set pieces and big sets, it doesn't lend itself to riffing and just having more comedic dialogue between them. Yeah.
I'll say another positive for me was a lot of people criticize Kristen Wiig maybe that she kind of gets stuck in kind of a character rut. She kind of never bothered me before. I will say that criticism of Melissa McCarthy, usually very loud and over the top, swearing a lot, and just being this typical. I felt both of them were kind of underplaying and understated in this, and I liked them a lot. I felt like they allowed it to be more of a team movie because you've got 4 main people. So that was good. And then I will say, I was comfortable at first with how they started it. I liked the opening tour of the house, the mansion thing. I really liked that, and I had a kind of a good feeling.
You were getting a good feeling at that point.
Yeah, it was all, it had me at the beginning, but then, and here's where we will slide into the negatives. As the references to the original started coming in, it was kind of like, I understand there's going to be some, but there was so much fan service, I started shrugging, and the cameos went from slightly interesting, Bill Murray. It was referential, but yet it was an actual interesting written cameo to me.
He actually had a role in the film.
He had a role.
I mean, there was an actual part. It wasn't just a passing in a scene and saying something.
So I actually
I thought when he first appeared on a TV screen, I thought, okay, well, that's going to be the cameo. But then he actually showed up later and had a somewhat interesting scene.
And I liked that.
Yeah.
Every other one kept going down.
I'm with you on that.
I was just like, oh, leave it alone. Don't, just don't do it. And like Dan Aykroyd's was so bad, I wanted to throw something at the screen.
Yeah,
it was just
I'm with you.
So very bad. So I've said that. Kate McKinnon. I don't get her.
Wait. She's on your negative list?
She's on my negative.
Oh, Chris.
Interesting in that we reviewed Popstar, and one of the strengths of that was I no longer watch Saturday Night Live. I don't. I just don't. Not, I would like to. I just, just can't fit in my schedule or whatever. And I hadn't seen one of the funniest things about that movie, which was the Bin Laden thing. And I was glad that I hadn't seen it, and that actually increased my appreciation of the movie. Fast forward to this movie, I'm not really aware of who Kate McKinnon is at all. I think she has been in some movies I've seen. I think she was in Trainwreck, maybe. I'm not sure. Or maybe a bit part. I'm not sure.
Yeah. She hasn't really had a big part.
She hasn't had a break. Yeah, if she was in it, she was small because that was Amy Schumer's movie. But so not really aware of her. I didn't get her at all. Like, I was confused by her. Like, am I? And okay, maybe that's the point of her. But like, it was like she was in a different movie than the other 3 of them were. Leslie Jones?
Leslie Jones.
Yeah. I thought she was good, and she kind of fit with the group. But Kate McKinnon, like, I didn't understand her. I didn't know what she was doing. it was just, she was distracting. And maybe that's because I don't know, like, oh, that's her thing. Like, you see Will Ferrell, then you see him in a movie and you're like, oh, that's Will Ferrell's thing. Maybe she's playing her persona from Saturday Night Live.
No, she didn't really have a persona. She's a very talented comedian. In a very, very wide ranging. I mean, she can do straight. She can do completely off the wall. I thought her character was really interesting. And
I hated her character.
Her character is the only one I felt like that they just kind of said, let's just kind of let that one go and see what it turns into. Where the other ones had very scripted, we got to be this way. We got to be kind of, this is our role. This is our personality. I liked it. I guess
I can admire that they didn't carbon copy. But I didn't feel like with any of the roles of the people in the film, I didn't feel like they carbon copied. They kind of mashed together the characters from the original movie to get the 4 Ghostbusters.
I think they had enough difference between the 4. The characters they wrote for the 4 were interesting and different, and they didn't just say, well, we need a Spangler and we need Dr. Venkman.
Right.
So it was a good mixture of.
And I guess. Yeah, I could not get a feel for her character at all. I didn't feel like she was.
The fact that
she's supposed to come up with these gizmos. I didn't feel like she was really smart because she didn't.
Oh, she's a genius, but she's just demented genius. I mean, she's
right. It's like she's playing. Okay, yeah, she's playing like this mad scientist, demented genius from like a kids movie, like a G-rated movie. Like, oh, I'm a wacky scientist. Ooh, watch me do the music video, or like she did singing to Kristen Wiig. She did that musical thing that was just weird,
I thought it was
just
funny.
odd. And
I liked her.
So and I think I'm alone on this because a lot of people, they'll slam the movie but say like, oh, I love Kate McKinnon and they didn't really let her run free. I'm like, I can't imagine her running any freer than what she was. I just didn't get her at all.
Well, also too, I thought she was one of the only characters that again was allowed the Paul Feig kind of let the characters be a little more interesting and bizarre. Everybody else was so tightly scripted, I felt like, and just, okay, especially Leslie Jones. All right, let me just talk about that.
Okay.
I think it's a little lazy that it's the same. Okay, well, we have the 3. I mean, this is not a racial conversation. I just think it's a little too much in the same pegs that they had, back in 1984. All right, we have our 3 scientists. Now we have to add the 4th person. And that 4th person just has to be someone who works in the streets kind of thing. And, they don't know science, but we're going to add them to the club. And they're there and they're still kind of an add-on. They don't really play an integral role all the way through the movie at all. I thought that was lazy. I thought that was kind of dumb. And I just wish they'd mixed it up a little bit more.
Right.
Why couldn't the African-American woman be one of the lead scientists?
What would have made more sense to me?
On that,
if, like you're saying, granted, it's how they decided to. That was kind of a weak thing, too, that it relied too much on the other. But I still liked her character. Leslie Jones, I got her. She made sense to me, and she didn't irritate me like Kate McKinnon. Had they switched it and had her be like the scientist one who was just there being science, and had Kate McKinnon be like the add-on that just comes to help them from out of nowhere, that actually would have made sense to me because she was so bizarre and just seemed to be like odd.
I thought Kate McKinnon was great, but again, I may have also been coming in with the fact that I've seen her on Saturday Night Live for a couple of years. I think she's great. The funniest skits on Saturday Night Live these days are the ones that she's in, and she can go completely off the wall, but she can also play really, really smart. I mean, she's just a very diverse actress. Was she as funny in this as I've seen her in other things? No, she wasn't. And there were a few scenes I thought were really, it was a little odd, a little strange the way they played that one out. But I thought she was good. I thought she was really good. I had her as one of the strengths of the film.
Okay.
I will say a couple more strengths real quick before you hit the rest of your negatives.
Sure.
Because I see there's a few more on your list.
There are. But
I will say I like the way the ghosts look.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the look of the ghost, the effects, the style of them, they were creepy and they really looked cool. I really loved the way the ghosts look. So I like that.
Yeah.
I will say that I thought Kate McKinnon's fight scene with the ghost, which you probably did not like, but I thought was really, really cool. It was just, we haven't seen a Ghostbuster kick ass before. Okay. Even the guys back in the 84, it was still pretty limited, like them actually tussling with ghosts. It was pretty simple. It was like stand in a row and all shoot your lasers at the same place. Actually seeing her go and just tear through, a bunch of them in a cool choreographed scene, I thought was really fun. And then I like Kevin. I like the Hemsworth character.
Kevin was obviously, he's my strong point.
Those are my likes.
Okay.
That was the end of my likes. I did have a lot of issues as well. So go ahead and hit the rest of yours. I'm sure we may be in sync on a few of these.
Neil Casey, who plays Rowan, who's
The bad guy.
I don't know if it was just, I guess they started making the movie and they already had enough like conflict with the internet that they kind of maybe, I don't know if this was already written this way or they actually started weaving that into the story, because he's basically a disenfranchised, seemingly kind of geeky dude, which is fine, but to me, he just wasn't interesting.
No, not interesting at all.
He was playing, and it was a choice. It was playing a disenfranchised nerd, but doing it in a very like uninteresting way, I guess. And he bored me every time he came on screen. Now, interestingly enough, he then kind of, spoiler, kind of transforms into Kevin.
Yeah.
And, Hemsworth then is even more interesting than he was before. Like that worked for me. So it's like, I think that was just kind of whether it was miscast or he just didn't have a lot to work with. I don't know, but the
villain as a whole was it's really unclear why anything's going on. Yes. I mean, I'll admit the villain's not compelling. We don't understand why he's doing what he's doing, and I still don't quite understand exactly what is happening that he's trying to make happen. I don't. It doesn't quite all gel together. So it's more of we just need to get from set piece A to set piece B, and we need a character to drive us there.
Right.
And that seemed to be all he was doing. So I'm with you on that.
So quickly, I'm going to run through the throwbacks, because I've referenced that was a weak part. And the worst ones we've already touched on, the cameos. They are the worst of what didn't work for me with this.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Now, following that, unfortunately, the logo origin.
Yeah, that was
dumb. And you kind of knew where it was going from the moment they started doing it.
Oh, you mean the spray paint? Oh, yeah. That was a horrible, horrible scene.
And it just...
No, I agree. It was cringeworthy to watch that.
The final battle, uninteresting and boring. And too much of a relying on, without spoiling exactly what the final battle consists. But it's still set in the city, but like the battling a big final enemy. And it was
a little too
referential.
Too referential. I will say, on that note, I thought the visual design of the giant thing they fought, when you really looked at it and paid attention to it, was really, really cool. It's just that
how things looked and everything. I agree. Like, I thought the ghost looked good. It was just the idea that they were up against. They again seemed kind of lazy.
It did.
And okay. And so the last thing that was referential that I thought was actually amazing, and then they couldn't leave good enough alone, and they reverted. Everyone knows the firehouse.
Oh yeah, I know where you're going.
And they don't get it, and because they can't afford it, and they go to the Chinese restaurant. Genius.
And
I loved it. I loved it.
I love the fact that they ripped that out from under us and said, no, they're not going to the firehouse. They're going to go
that was reverent, but then them denying you and being clever. Awesome. But then at the end of the movie, do they have to then set up a sequel and say, oh, nope, we're back to the firehouse? I was like, no, really? That was like the nail in the coffin that really just made me leave the theater disgusted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you.
So those are...
I thought it was genius, the subversion they did with their office location. And then you're right. When they drop back at the end again, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of expected that. So
okay. Last thing that has nothing to do with cameos, but my last negative, product placement. And maybe that's why I have an extra bone to pick with Kate McKinnon, because she's the person who decided to promote Pringles.
Oh, no.
And she's like, lovely, tasty parabolas. And I'm like, not done. Product placement is forever going to be in movies. I get that. But that wasn't the only example, but that was the first one that they did. And I'm like, okay, that's not as clever as Wayne's World. Wayne's World.
Oh, I mean, they were,
they were the first. And
they were breaking the fourth wall with it.
I was already kind of on the fence about her character, but when she did that, I'm like, that's dumb. It doesn't even mean anything. It's like, oh, I love these tasty parabolas. Like, it was so irritating. And then they followed that not too long after that with the Papa John's pizza spread. And I was like, oh my God. And they didn't even bother to reference like to try to like at least the parabolas, that was a really lame joke that they tried to work into like so they could face the Pringles can out and let you see it. But the Papa John's thing was just like,
see, I don't even notice that stuff.
oh my god,
I don't. I do not notice product placements in film.
Well, that means they're doing it well for you, but for me, those two were just like somebody banging a gong.
Somebody else mentioned the Papa John's after the movie. I'm like, I remember them being pizza, but I don't remember it being Papa John's.
Oh my gosh,
I don't notice that stuff.
Yeah, all the boxes were like so you could read all the.
I
Oh my gosh,
I didn't see it. Advertisers, companies, you can't get to me. It doesn't work. I actually think after I went to go see Ghostbusters, I think I went to go eat and order Domino's pizza. So it did not work.
It didn't work.
Papa John's did not get to me.
Oh, it gets to me, but it gets to me in a bad way.
Right, it does the opposite.
Really, and the thing is too, like I could possibly excuse that if we were talking about the Phenom or whatever, and like they've got to do product placement because they're a small indie budget movie and they work in product play. That I get. Ghostbusters does it need any more money?
Probably didn't need the money.
Probably not. I mean, I know movies are expensive, but come on.
See, here's the way I'm looking at it, Chris. I think you and I have the same issues with the film, except for Kate McKinnon. We're completely opposite on that. The other items you had, yes, I'm with you.
Sure.
And the things that bugged me the most about this film is when they tried so hard to reference and mirror the original. That I really honestly wish they had just gone on a completely different path.
Yeah.
Could have been a completely different city. Could have been completely different style of ghost they're fighting at the end.
Yeah.
Could have been everything. They could have gone so completely different. And I would have had so much more respect for this film. The things where they tried to reference it were really lazy and boring. It didn't work at all.
Yeah.
That being said, I still came out saying, if I can forget the 84 version, if I can just forget that never happened, if I'm a 12-year-old kid right now who's never seen a Ghostbusters film and I went to go see this, I would have had a good time with it.
See?
Because I think it had some scary moments. I thought the special effects were really cool. I thought the humor when it worked was really good. Again, it's just, I think I'm brought down because of the references to 84, but if I can carve those out, I feel like on its own, it's a passable entertainment film.
See, I'm not there, but I will say this. The movie has made enough money. Supposedly, Sony execs after opening weekend said that we will be making another Ghostbusters movie. I will not write this franchise off. I'm interested to see a second movie with the same cast of characters because I'm assuming now that we've got the setup and the references done, we can just have a good movie.
There's not really that many other references they can tap into now.
They really worried about cramming them all in.
Yeah.
So that's my thing is with this next movie, I'm going to forget this Ghostbusters 2016 version. And I'm going to go to the next movie like, oh, they're going to do a new Ghostbusters movie. And I'm going to watch that one. And I imagine I'm going to like it. And I imagine, maybe I'll like Kate McKinnon better because I already understand who she is. Like, I don't know. I'm not only am I going to forget 1984's movie, but I'm going to forget 2016's Ghostbusters when they come out with the next one.
Fair enough.
And I think I'll probably like it.
I guess when I look at it, the concept, I still love the Ghostbusters concept as a movie franchise.
Gotcha.
I like these 4 women. I am interested in seeing them in another adventure together. I'm with you though. I want it to be a unique on its own thing. Don't rehash. Don't make the next one where we have the exact same setup as Ghostbusters 2, where,
right.
They make a giant landmark of New York City come alive at the end and all that. I mean, just drop with the references.
Yeah.
Come up with a really cool ghost story that they can go and fight and let them kind of be their own character. I like the way they've set up these 4 characters.
Yeah.
I do agree that they are different enough where they're interesting, and I wouldn't mind watching them in the lab coming up with some other things.
All of what we've discussed being said, tell me your children saw this movie with you?
They did.
Okay. And how did they react?
They thought it was fine. They didn't love it. They thought it was okay. I mean, they'd seen the original.
Okay.
They, of course, were not as bothered by references to 84 as we are. But, I mean, they thought it was fine.
Right.
They didn't come out gushing about it. They weren't overly excited, but they thought it was fine.
And see, I think that's the thing too is my kids saw it and they liked it.
Yeah.
They're not just ranting and raving, want to see it again, but they liked it. The references didn't bother them. I think Yeah, seeing the 1984 version when I was young, it, like you said, it hit at the perfect time. This movie, because it wasn't completely original and the kids had seen the original, but they're still young enough that I think it didn't bother them like it bothers me.
I've seen the original probably 15 times.
Oh, sure.
So my kids have maybe seen it once.
Right.
So it just doesn't have that same impact on them as much. So.
Right.
I will say one other thing I thought was kind of nice. I wish they had done more with it. Maybe it will be something in a sequel that they'll explore more.
Okay.
I thought the slant they took with the mayor was interesting in that as soon as they got dragged to the mayor's office, I'm like, oh boy, here we go again.
Which they do a reference.
Same setup, and they even dropped some references back to that meeting. But I kind of like the angle of the mayor basically saying, yeah, I know. Yeah, what you're doing is real. I get it. This stuff's happening.
We just can't acknowledge
We just want to make you guys look like crackpots because we got to protect ourselves. That I'm like, okay, that's another one of those, almost like the Chinese restaurant versus the.
Right.
It's like, great, give me something different, turn it in a different angle.
Right.
I'm respectful of that.
Right.
So in other words, they're going to have to keep playing crackpots, even though they're secretly doing good work for the city
and getting funding from the city.
That's right, but they just can't come out and have people respect them for it, which
Right.
again is a nice take on that, and I like that. I just I wish they'd done a little more with it, but maybe that's again when they do a sequel, they can be a little bit more on that vein.
And kind of how I came out on the movie is summed up in the closing minutes. The skyline lights up with thank yous to the Ghostbusters, and the Ghostbusters see this. I think it's McCarthy's character who kind of says, "Oh, well, that's not terrible," and that's how I felt
Wow.
about. That's how I felt about.
That
the
was
movie.
an unfortunate last line.
I think that's what she said because that's how I felt about the movie because
It's not
it wasn't terrible. Did it disappoint me greatly? Yes, because I thought a lot of the comedy didn't work, the references and stuff, but it's not terrible. But it's not great either. And it was interesting that kind of summed up my feelings on the movie. And it faded
I'm
to black
definitely
and
not
like,
saying it's great. I'm not saying it's terrible either. Again, passable
not terrible.
is the word I'm saying. It's just
Passable.
if you can let go of the 84 version, I
Sure.
think it's a fine, fun film. If you're hung up on the 84 version, this is going to really, really bother you the whole time.
Gotcha.
And I found myself wavering between those two emotions the whole film. At the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, it was all right. I actually saw it twice, not by choice. It was kind of a situation where I had a free ticket. A friend of mine was going, really wanted to go, and I kind of wanted to see what my friend's opinion was going to be because I knew his opinions of the original as well. So watching it the second time, I knew when the references were going to come up, and I knew when to roll my eyes at the right times. I still came out of it saying, yeah, it was okay. It was a passable film. I'm anxious to see them do something new with it the next time with these same characters. So.
Got you.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, that's Ghostbusters. Chris, not a big fan. Me, teetering. I say if you don't have an affinity to the original and you don't really care about the original, but you just want to go see a decent science fiction comedy movie, yeah, I can think of worse ways to spend your time.
And I will say, yeah, not a big fan, but as much as I didn't like it, I know there's talent there, and I'm interested to see what they do in a sequel.
Yeah. All right. So maybe you're okay with the foundation starting to lay a little bit. So
Right.
maybe. Okay. Let's move on to our second science fiction blockbuster film, which is this one is a true sequel as opposed to a reboot that we did with Ghostbusters. This is the third in the Abrams-verse version of Star Trek that was started back in 2009 with Star Trek and then followed with Star Trek Into Darkness. We now have the third one, Star Trek Beyond.
My dad joined Starfleet because he believed in it. I joined on a dare.
You joined to see if you could live up to him. You spent all this time trying to be your father. And now you're wondering just what it means to be you.
It isn't uncommon, It's easy to get lost. In the vastness of space, there's only yourself, your ship, your crew.
You really want to head back out there, huh?
So, J.J. Abrams did the initial film, Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Then he did the follow-up, which I remember us complaining about the name Star Trek Into Darkness.
Dumb name.
Dumb name.
Yeah.
So then Abrams said, okay, I'm off to do Star Wars. Tell you what, somebody else take over. they bring in Justin Lin, Mr. Fast and Furious director.
Yes.
He comes in, and apparently the naming conventions are still kind of crazy over there because they come up with just Star Trek Beyond, which I feel like is worse than Into Darkness. So,
well, I mean,
I think the next one may just be like Star Trek, a science fiction movie, like or something like that.
I don't mind the Star Trek Beyond. It's just weird naming. I mean, so are you saying Star Trek as a verb into darkness? Like, so we are trekking into darkness. Now we're trekking beyond. It's weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
So we have the name. Alan, with Justin Lin as a new director, do you think, you're now 3 movies in, Abrams leaving, getting a new director to come in and do the 3rd installment, do you feel like that helped to maybe refresh the franchise as you're going into your 3rd movie, or do you feel like Abrams got out just in time and this reboot franchise is kind of headed downhill? What's your take?
It's definitely not heading downhill.
Okay.
I enjoyed this film quite a bit.
Okay.
I thought it was a really fun film. I'll have some negatives in a moment.
Okay.
But I thought overall a very fun film. That's the biggest way I can describe it. It was like, I like the fact that it seemed to be a lot more self-contained in that it's almost like an episode of Star Trek that just got a really, really big budget and a longer running time.
Okay.
It's kind of like started and closed, and there's really no lasting repercussions in either direction. It's kind of like they could start the next movie up and you wouldn't have even known if this one took place or not. So it's kind of self-contained, which is nice. I think that was okay. I like these characters. I like the people playing these characters. I like the interaction with these characters. My favorite parts of this film were just when these different characters are interacting with each other, because I think they've got a really great banter. I think they have the personalities nailed down. They know who they are now, and it's fun to watch. And then I will say on the opposite side of the coin, I thought this film had some really, really great visual moments to it.
Okay.
A few I can pick out by memory just because I thought they were really impressive, what they did. The action, the fight scenes, the chases, all they weren't as well done, I don't think. I didn't find those to be as interesting. I actually kind of was getting bored with some of the action scenes and said, just get on to where you guys talk to each other again, because that's more fun and interesting to me. So the action scenes were a letdown for me.
Okay.
But I still like these characters. And I like the fact that at the end of the day, it was just a fun movie. It ended nicely. It kind of had a nice button-up ending. There's no secret messages going on or hidden boxes or mysteries to figure out that are going to linger on for another movie. It's like it was just a nice, clean movie. And I liked it for that. So I had a good time. I thought it was better than the last one. I didn't like it as much as the original JJ first one because I just thought that was a really, really well done, fun science fiction movie. This one, I'm happy to finally see them going out into space. That was the thing that hung me up on the last movie. It's like we're 2 movies in and they still haven't taken off and just gone off into space to go on their mission yet. So I like the fact that this kind of said, yeah, okay, we've been on a mission for quite a while and we've done a lot of stuff. And now let's show you one adventure we had while we're out. So anyway, I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I do have some misgivings and issues, but overall, I thought a fun movie. What did you think?
This is really weird because it seems like most of the times we review, granted, the other one was a science fiction comedy, and this is just science fiction action.
Yeah.
My history as a science fiction lover is well documented. I'm still going on about Prometheus. I liked Under the Skin. In general, if a science fiction movie comes out, I'm probably going to like it. I was so bored by this movie.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought visually, the visuals of the film, like, they're big cities, like the futuristic cities and the space stations, the planet that they do go, journey to, all the visuals, all the special effects, all that looks great. And I thought was well done. That wasn't the problem. And that's a really big positive on the film. I just wasn't really interested. I felt like in a way I was watching an episode of a TV show and there was no surprise with it. Or I wasn't getting anything. I wasn't interested in it because I felt like I had seen it in one of the older episodes of the TV show. Mm-hmm. There is some, and I don't want to spoil it because it was other than the visuals, it was the thing that I liked about the movie. It did kind of surprise me on kind of the main bad guy's story.
Yeah.
And that I thought that was...
It had an interesting reveal.
I thought that was good. And that helped me. That kind of helped bring my interest level up a little bit when that happened. But I felt like the characters in the movie who established themselves well in the first two, you know, the guy, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, who plays Spock and Kirk, and, you know, the other cast, they do a good job. They do know these characters. But by the time in this film, I felt like they were kind of just bored and they were kind of just saying lines. Kirk in the beginning is sullen and kind of a crybaby.
Oh, we got to talk about that first few minutes.
And he's just uninteresting. And before he was like, you know, I'm the brash James T. Kirk. And it's like, he was who in... I know it just didn't really work for me. And Spock, and not his fault, I think he's still playing the character, but they throw this really maudlin thing in there about Leonard Nimoy passing away. And I get it, but just like it seemed like kind of out of nowhere, like, oh, we're going to have this in here. And, you know, typically in a movie, at the end of the movie, you say for Leonard Nimoy, which is, you know, I get that. But having it kind of work into the plot and like they don't just reference it and move on. No,
they were trying to set up this whole idea, and I agree they didn't do it very well. The Kirk Spock dynamic is one thing I thought was really not handled very well in this film, because they were trying really hard to set up this situation where both of them are contemplating different moves in their career.
Got you.
And I thought that was an interesting plot that they were going to carry forward, and they really didn't. It's like they mentioned it at the beginning, and then they have a quick little mention of it at the end, like kind of button it up, and that was it. And it's like, okay, well, that was really... I loved the way this film got started with the captain's log. And you're talking about him being all depressed and all that. I loved it because what it was a couple minutes of him just talking about what's been going on the ship while they've been out in space for all this time. And the fact that he's feeling a little beaten down, a little depressed, a little bored, a little monotonous, which that's not his character. And we saw that in the first two films. He's not the kind of character that just to go through the routines every day and wearing the same outfit and doing the same things every day. That's not him.
Right.
So I love the fact that it was kind of like, okay, we've never really gotten a glimpse into how monotonous this could be, that we're just flying through space for a few years. We may encounter something kind of cool here. We may run into something else here. But overall, we're just plotting space right now. Well, and I love the way they set that up and kind of gave us a framework of Kirk kind of needs something to shake him up a little bit. And I thought that was cool.
I think, okay, had they made that more of a theme, but it wouldn't have been an action movie. If they'd have made that more kind of like a existentialist movie, more like Solaris or something like that, where, you know, it's plotting, it's all about, you know, yes, space can be very big, it can be very boring, you know, but they set that, but in this action framework, it's like he's saying that and he's being whiny and then like, okay, we're going to give him lots of action things. Like, I get what you're saying, and that's an interesting idea about how it kind of goes against the grain of his character, but in the framework of Star Trek, in the framework of who Kirk's supposed to be, it just didn't work for me. But I can see how you liked the setup.
It worked for me. I don't want to see a movie of just them sailing through space and kind of talking about how depressed they are sailing through space. I don't want that from a Star Trek movie.
Sure.
But I like the fact that they at least gave us this insight. You know, the opening pre-credits is kind of a little scene of a negotiation on a planet that goes wrong. You know, so you kind of get the sense of, okay, this is what he's kind of doing now. Is he's negotiating and he's trading with alien races, and he's having to go make speeches to alien races.
Right.
And he's just bored, you know, and I'm like,
like I am.
Yeah, right. I mean, I got it. So,
right.
I will say when the plot kicks in, it's like, okay, and they're getting attacked and they got to go on this planet and rescue their crew. All those mechanics got really tedious and boring and not very exciting. I'm with you on that. I will say there were some visual moments in this film, though. You know, they were moments. They were not carried through the entire film, but there were a few moments where I honestly like looked to the people I'm watching the film with, like, okay, yeah, that was pretty cool. There was like a shot of the Enterprise taking off the first time that's kind of shot from right in front of the ship, almost like a GoPro camera type of look and feel to it, which I thought that's really cool. I've never seen them do that with that ship before. There's another scene where there's a giant swarm of these little ship B-like ships type of thing that they're fighting. And granted, I've got my own issues with that. I'll talk
Ender's
about in a
Game?
moment. Yeah, but there's at least a shot where you see the Enterprise approaching. And it's this giant swarm, almost like a wave. I'm like, visually, there again, very cool.
Right.
Going through warp speed, it has this great visual of it kind of ripping through space and kind of creating a little bit of a surface around it as it does that. Little moments like that, I'm like, those are some really great visual elements to the film that I really appreciate. But again, the fighting, the battle scenes, the chases inside the ship and the gun, it was all very tedious and just not very exciting to watch. And just, I kind of just wanted to fast forward to the next time they actually get together as characters and talk some more. Because again, that's when I had the most fun with this film.
I felt like, I agree on the action sequences. In addition, it was hard for me to follow because a lot of them were dark. I kind of felt like it was like an X-Files type thing.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is completely off of a review track. I'm wondering if you and I saw it in the same movie theater. Because the bulb in my theater was so dark, and that was not how the film should look. I guarantee it. Even the previews and everything beforehand were really dark and dim. And all of us that were watching it afterwards said, I could barely see what was going on in some of those action scenes.
Okay.
And that should not be the film.
Okay.
So I really think that was... I know you and I went to the same theater, and we were there at one time separated.
Right.
We may have been the exact same theater, and if so, the bulb in that theater was horribly, horribly dark and dim. So don't hold that against the film. I really think the film would be a brighter experience on a TV. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
One other character note, which I'm usually a big fan of Simon Pegg, and I know that he helped write this film. And I get it. He's playing Scotty, and so he's going to be Scottish. But the number of times that it was almost like he was working too hard to be the character. And the number of times he said, like, lassie, I thought I was going to vomit if he said it one more time. I was like, I get it. You're Scottish. Just, come on.
I thought of all the main characters, I think his was the weakest. I generally liked him in the other films. I thought he was fun.
Yeah, this one, he just was great.
I can't think of anything that I thought was interesting about his character this time. I thought Kirk was still interesting. Spock was very, very minimally used. And it seems like they always get Spock injured or incapable of doing things at points. I'm not sure why. But Anton Yelchin, got to mention, thought was fine. I mean, great. He didn't have a whole lot to do in the movie, but I thought he was okay. Bones is still, I think, really funny. I just like Bones as a character in general. So, yeah, it was a very slight Star Trek movie, and it doesn't have any major impact to anybody, anything in the franchise. I just like the fact that we actually got a movie that kind of had a start and an ending, and it ended up and it finished the plot, and hey, it brought in a new character who's probably going to be around and some stuff. Like, okay, that was fine. It was fun. I thought the comedy that was used was good. And I liked enough of those visual flourishes throughout the film to keep me engaged. I do have to ask you without spoiling, just because I'm curious if you like this moment or not. But the use of contemporary music during a very key pivotal scene. How
you can spoil that, because they use the song in one of the trailers.
Oh yeah.
And the way it was used was good, and it would have probably won. It probably would have won me over more to the film. If it hadn't been in the trailer. If it hadn't been in the trailer, because it started, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And it was excellent use of music. Too bad your marketing people ruined the moment.
I completely agree with you. I loved that moment in the film. I thought it was great. And even just the way it was timed with the audio, there's like a little bit of a pause before the song starts. And when the song starts, you're like, yeah, that's perfect. But you're right. When the trailer for this film came out and they're using, it was the Beastie Boys. It's Sabotage.
Yeah, we're not really.
It's not in the trailer. Right. Like, it runs through the whole trailer. When I saw that preview, I'm like, please tell me this is not going to go with contemporary pop music or rock music to kind of make it hipper or whatever, because that's exactly what that trailer seemed to indicate.
Right.
I'm very happy with the way it was used in the film. I'm with you. I kind of wish they had not done that in the trailer. How amazing would it have been
had you not been aware of it?
It would have been really cool. So I'll just say that was an awesome moment where that was a moment where I was smocking on my face. So I'm like, okay, yeah.
I apologize to any listeners who, maybe you've been living under a rock and haven't seen any trailers for Star Trek, and now we've ruined the fact that Sabotage is in this movie, because that would have been really amazing.
We're not going to tell you how it's used.
Right.
Just, it is used very, very effectively. Yeah. I will say that. Probably one of the best musical moments I've seen in a film in a while, where just that little bit, when it just hit that song, I'm like, that was perfect. That was really, really good.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Now, granted, the rationale behind how and why they're using it and what it's supposed to do makes no sense to me whatsoever. But I didn't care. It was still fun to do. So
right.
And Idris Elba as the bad guy. I couldn't have cared less about the bad guy, although at the end it did at least make it a little more interesting.
He seemed to be very cardboard cut out.
Yeah. And again, I still don't understand why.
I think that helped make him boring, because he was very cardboard. But some of the backstory you finally do get makes it
He didn't become interesting until the last 20 minutes.
Right.
But I still don't really understand what he was doing and why. And I mean, I don't understand any of that. I don't understand how the B ships work and how the Star Trek crew kind of figured out how to beat them. It was very much a Scooby-Doo kind of moment. It's like, oh, well, they must operate like this. And if they operate like this, we can do this. And this will take care of it. And it was dumb.
It bothered me how similar to Ender's Game that whole part was.
It was. But again, I'll say, I thought it was a fun film. If it's on again, I'll probably end up watching it just because I did have enough fun moments in it.
I'm going to watch it to see if the action scenes are any better, because they may not be dimly lit.
They may not be as dark. I will tell you, it's interesting you had that comment, because I'm thinking, man, that really kind of killed it for me watching it, those scenes, because I really couldn't see what was happening.
Because one of the things I know before on the show we've harped about is some action scenes, maybe we're just getting old, are kind of hard to follow, because they also do them in the shaky cam, type thing. So I was kind of prepared for that, but I was like, I just feel like there's an added irritation here that everything's dark, but maybe not.
I really do think it's more the theater we saw it in.
I'll say something else positive about the film. I thought the character design, I guess you would call it, for Jayla was awesome.
I liked her as a character in general.
I liked her as a character, and I liked her character design, like the makeup or the mask, whatever they did for her face. I haven't been that impressed with like a character design since Darth Maul, actually.
No, and there's some similarities there with it.
There are, but I remember seeing Darth Maul, and I was like, wow, I really hope that character's cool. And he was. And with her, like, I would see her in the previews, and I'd be like, oh, I hope she's good. And she is.
She was a cool character. That's one I kind of hope when they do another Star Trek movie, I wouldn't mind seeing her part of the crew on that, because she was kind of an interesting character. So, okay, so I've been Mr. kind of positive on these films today. What is up with this? So I'm actually saying Ghostbusters is not bad. I'm saying Star Trek Beyond's a lot of fun. You have a lot longer list of issues on both films than I do, but they're both still playing. They're making some money, not great money, either of them, but decent money, I guess, for what they are. So that's our reviews today. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do some movie news and our recommendations. So stay tuned to Footcandle Films. We'll be right back.
Local authors, illustrators, and storytellers come together to create Storytime Station at The Mesh. Storytime Station is a video podcast that works as a virtual storybook. Each show features a new children's book and new reader, so gather the whole family to listen, learn, and laugh at Storytime Station on themesh.tv.
Welcome back to Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv. Alan and Chris here. We just finished our reviews of the 2016 version of Ghostbusters, the 2016 Star Trek Beyond. It's all kind of retro days here on Footcandle Films, two franchises that have been around for a while, getting new installments. Me, a little more positive on both than Chris, but I don't think either of us are saying that they're perfect films by any stretch of the imagination. Just different taste, different things going on, some concerns on both films' fronts. But you can go backwards if you skipped over or missed our reviews and listen to those again if you'd like. But let's move on to some movie news. Chris, we kind of keep our eyes on what's happening with different new productions going on, some directors and actors working on new projects. So we like to come up with a few news items and just kind of bat them around with each of us and see our thoughts here. So let me mention the first one here. And I just thought there's probably not a lot to talk about with this. I just think it's really interesting.
Okay.
You may recall that we talked about a film a while back. It was actually this time last year that we thought was going to be coming out around September, because we thought it was going to be coming out around our film festival time. And it was actually filmed in North Carolina. It has a lot of North Carolina connections. Film is Masterminds.
Yes.
So it's finally coming out.
Okay.
I believe at this point they're saying it's going to come out maybe this fall.
Does it stand any chance of being any good?
I don't see how. I mean, I don't want to write it off. I really hate writing off, especially comedies, just based on trailers. I think the trailer is mildly amusing.
Sure.
But yet, when you have a movie that got delayed a year and a half showing. Now, granted, it was all tied up in bankruptcy through Relativity Studios. The studio would be bankrupt.
So
this film was
movie's about a bank robbery.
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
Okay.
So it got hung up for that. Now, granted,
so that was the original reason. Okay.
That's the real reason. Now, from a audience standpoint, are they going to hold that against the film? Or are they going to say, well, it's a delayed, a year. Obviously, it must not be very good. It may be a hilarious movie that just got right at the time where the studio went bankrupt and can't release it. And they've been working through all the legal battles for about a year to get it closed out.
So it's Zach
Galifianakis, Owen Wilson, Jason Sudeikis, and Kristen Wiig.
Right. So
funny cast. I have heard, and I don't know how accurate this is. This is just something I read about the film, that there's some thoughts that they actually went and added some more scenes because now your new favorite, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones actually have more screen time. So we have 3 of the 4 Ghostbuster women now in there. Maybe they're saying, well, they felt like the chemistry was really good with these women. So while we have time, let's add these 2 characters or add some more scenes for these 2 actresses in there a little bit.
Wow,
I don't know.
That makes me worry a little bit.
Napoleon Dynamite's Jared Hess is the one directing it, or did direct it. Obviously, this thing's been out, done for a while, so he directed it probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Got you.
I'm curious, and again, with the comedy, the trailers, I think the trailers are fine. They're just as funny as a typical broad comedy that comes out these days. And you never know if the trailer's showing you all 5 or 6 of the funniest scenes in the movie, or if there's actually something deeper going on. So, again, probably not a lot of discussion here. Just I thought it was interesting that this film that's been batted around, and we had an interest in because it's Jared Hess, because it's filmed in North Carolina, because it's based on a true story that took place
happened in North Carolina,
an hour away from where we live. We had some vested interest in seeing this film, and now I just don't know where it's going to go. But we'll see. So anyway, that's
so
Masterminds.
It's scheduled to come out when? September of this year?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll have to look that up while you're doing your news items.
Okay.
But I mean, they've restarted the trailers for it again.
Gotcha.
Trailers were being shown last summer for this film.
Right, yeah.
And then it got delayed. So now they've started back up the new trailers, and obviously it must be coming up September 30th. That is the date now. Yeah. Zach Galifianakis. I'm curious to see.
I will say I saw that he's in this Keeping Up with the Joneses. Saw a preview before the Star Trek movie, and it looks like a rehash of the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie movie that they did where they were spies. And
well, it's the whole, you've got the dweeby couple
Mr. and Mrs.
against
Smith
the cool spy couple.
Right.
And that's another one of those movies where the trailer was mildly amusing. Mildly, but again, I have no idea if that means that this movie is actually any good or not.
Sure.
Comedy trailers are tough.
Well, I was surprised because I saw that, and that actually made me think when I saw that. I was like, so I wonder if Masterminds is ever going to come out. So now you're saying it is. Okay.
It is, absolutely. And I'm just saying, Mr. Galifianakis, I'm a little concerned about him. I mean, he really hasn't had a hit in quite a long time. And he's still doing kind of the one note thing right now. I'm kind of, I don't know. I feel like he may need to try to shake it up a little bit somewhere.
I have seen, not a movie, but he did a show. I think it's still going on.
Baskets.
And
is it good?
I liked Baskets.
Okay. I've heard that's good. So it's almost like maybe like with the Between Two Ferns online videos, the TV show Baskets and all, maybe going that route is probably more of his thing than these broad kind of big box office comedies, know, because he really hasn't had a hit.
It's pretty dark.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It needs to be a little more subversive, I think, for him to really excel. And I'm just afraid these PG-13, broad comedies may not. He has his funny moments, but I just don't think he really excels the material anymore. So,
Right.
All right. What's a news item you've got?
So, Duncan Jones. Mm-hmm. He came out this year. It was actually, I was anticipating the movie because he was involved. He came out with Warcraft. and reviews have been really terrible for it. I have not seen it yet. I still want to see it, but I now haven't rushed out to see it because I heard it was horrible. Duncan Jones, prior to that, which is why I was so excited about it, he'd made Moon, which you and I both liked. Source Code. Did you ever see Source Code?
Did.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good.
I like that one as well.
Yeah.
Well, what makes me happy is there's news about his next project.
Warcraft 2.
No.
Oh.
And and the whole time, like, I heard he was doing Warcraft. I was like, well, maybe he'll make a franchise movie, but he's doing it, so it makes me kind of interested to see it. But then I heard it was horrible. Haven't seen it yet. Still want to give it a chance. But my solace was, well, you know what? The thing is, he got a paycheck, and I think he's really talented. He has some original ideas. I'm anxious to see what he does after Warcraft now that, he's kind of wish it would have been better for him because that way he would have had more clout in Hollywood. Who knows, whatever.
Right.
Well, his next movie is going to be called Mute. It starts shooting pretty soon, I think. And here's the plot description. Thank you, Letterboxd. 40 years from today, Berlin is a rolling city of immigrants where East crashes against West in a science fiction Casablanca. So here again, science fiction, I'm in. Leo Byler, who's played by Alexander Skarsgård, a mute bartender, has one reason and one reason only for living there, and she has disappeared. So then Leo, the bartender guy, starts to go search for her in the city's underbelly, which is really disgusting apparently, and a pair of American surgeons, one of them being Paul Rudd, seems to be the only person that can serve recurring clues and keeps popping in and giving him information about the disappearance of this girlfriend. But then he becomes paranoid, not sure if he can trust him or fear him, he's not really sure what's going on. Reminds me, kind of setup, sounds to me kind of like a Brazil type thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's just, I'm interested. And something so kind of bizarre and it's original, screenplay material. It just really, I don't know. I'm really excited to see. It's one of my most anticipated movies of 2017.
Well, I'm just, I never want to say that just because a director ventured out and tried to do a big box office, big blockbuster movie, and it didn't go well, that they should just completely retreat and go back a different direction. But it just sounds like this is more of his wheelhouse. And it's a little more daring, a little more interesting film. So I'm obviously going to be a lot more excited. I was never excited about Warcraft, even with Duncan Jones. I saw some of the production art. I saw the trailers. I'm just not getting this at all.
The trailers definitely didn't excite me for Warcraft. I think that I saw him make a statement on Twitter just a couple of days ago, actually. He said he was getting excited for the production because it was getting, they're going to start shooting soon. They already have production art and stills that are really cool if you find the links out there on the internet. But he said excited about getting back into an independent film. And basically, I'm paraphrasing extremely, but where we're not beholden to source material is something completely like you say, it's in his wheelhouse where you're not coming to it with preconceived ideas.
Sure.
And I think he was excited about the freedom that can allow.
I can see that. No, I think that's exciting sounding. I'm intrigued as well. I had not heard anything about it at all. So I was only going to do one more, but I actually have another one. So
you're going to tell me that he's also going to do Warcraft 2.
Yes. Just because I think we have a fascination. So this is my new last minute edition on the news. Just because I think you and I kind of have a little bit of an interesting fascination with Mr. M. Night Shyamalan.
I heard. Okay, yes, I'm glad you're going to talk because I don't know a lot about it, but I just saw something fly by. Okay.
So I actually just saw the preview last night and
you
I
watched
just read up a little bit on it. Yep. So he has another film coming out. And the reason I bring it up is because I think it's interesting. He had The Village, The Visit.
Yes, which I saw.
You saw, and you thought was okay.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It let me down in some parts, but I would say overall, and much a return to form.
You said, I remember you saying the phrase return to form a little bit with him. I've been watching the show Wayward Pines, which he executive produced both seasons. He actually did some directing in the first season.
Okay.
The second season just wrapped up. I enjoyed
so it's
it.
Still currently.
Well, it just finished up. I don't think it's going to have a third season. I don't think it's doing very well ratings wise, but I enjoyed it, and I liked kind of knowing that he had his finger on it from the beginning.
Okay.
So now we have a film that he's got coming out. It's coming out in January. It's called Split.
Okay.
and it stars Mr. James McAvoy. It also stars our girl, and her name is, what is her? Anna Taylor-Joy from The Witch.
Huh.
Yeah, lead actress from The Witch, the young girl.
Okay.
So the concept of this film...
Yeah, see, okay, I heard he was making a new film. I saw it had McAvoy in it, and I was like, oh, interesting. You know, he did The Visit. I'm curious. I don't know anything about it, so tell me. I'm interested to see what the...
Oh, you need to see the trailer for this.
I just know the title is called Splits.
You need to see the trailer for this.
Okay.
Kevin, a man with at least 23 different personalities, is compelled to abduct 3 teenage girls, and as they're held captive, a final personality called the Beast begins to materialize. The trailer's pretty messed up. I mean, McAvoy, if this film is good, it'll be because McAvoy pulled it off. In the trailer, he plays 4 different characters already that you see, like personalities.
It sounds like something... it sounds interesting concept, but really hard to pull off.
Yeah, but basically it's got a 10 Cloverfield Lane feel to it, and that these women are abducted and they're down in a bunker. Very, very similar to how that film is set up. The difference is that this individual, you learn, basically he's coming into the room to interact with the girls in different personalities each time. And the personalities are in conflict with one another. One of the personalities is a 9-year-old boy who is scared of the other personality. One of them is as a woman, and he comes dressed up as a woman.
Wow.
That's talking about how she's there to protect the girls, where this other one is not. And then they keep referring to her personality.
It sounds like a fascinating concept. Yeah. It sounds like it would make a really good, like, Chuck Palahniuk novel, kind of like the guy who wrote Fight Club, but like carrying that off on the screen, that could be kind of tricky.
I think the premise is fascinating. I love it.
Yeah.
It also has the open opportunity for it to completely fall at the end of the film. I can already see that. It being Shyamalan, this complex process of the film, it's one that it has to stick a good landing or it's going to fall apart. I'm fascinated. I will tell you, I love this concept because I actually, back in college, I wrote some skits for a comedy TV show that we did on campus and broadcasted around the community there. So I was big into writing different, like Saturday Night Live little skits and funny comedic bits. And one of them, I'm still really proud of myself for this. It was a skit that was a TV show, a soap opera, that only had 2 actors in it. And because the actors had multiple split personalities, their personalities were the ones having affairs with one another in interaction. So they would leave the room and come back as a different personality. I still think it's funny. I still laugh about it. The people who took it and actually acted it and took it in a whole different direction. But I still think the core concept was funny. So I love this idea of there being somebody with all these personalities and the personalities are actually interacting with each other and with different people in a situation. I think could be really, really interesting. So you need to check out the trailer and see
Comes
what you
out
think.
in January.
January 20th, 2017.
Okay.
So that's
I'm curious.
The latest Shyamalan. I'm impressed that this guy has not dropped off the face of the earth. He hit his lowest point with After Earth. I mean, that was really it. At that point...
Is that lower than Lady in the Water?
I think so.
Is it lower than The Happening?
Ooh. Okay. Let me say lowest in terms of box office, critical review, like everybody just writing them off. The Happening was the worst film he's made, but he was still riding some current of people liking his stuff.
Whereas After Earth...
After Earth, nobody wanted to see. Nobody did see.
You and I, unfortunately, did.
We saw it, and it was not good.
No.
So he kind of, with The Happening and then After Earth and The Last Airbender, it was kind of like he is bottomed out.
Right.
With Wayward Pines, with The Visit, maybe with this one, he may be crawling himself back out a little bit. So I'm rooting for him. I want it to work. And this looks like a fascinating film. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Do you know, and we've theorized about this in the past, do you know if it's original script to him, that he wrote the script? Or because for a while we were thinking the problem was if he both wrote and directed it, he was too bent on trying to do a twist and that kind of backfired. But then he took on material that wasn't his, like After Earth and Last Airbender, and that was still horrible. So you're like, well, I don't know what this is.
He is the writer, the credited writer for this.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I think it's his idea.
Okay.
We'll see. I want the guy to have a success again.
Sure,
I liked so much. I like The Sixth Sense. I like so much
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
Yeah.
Unbreakable is a great film. Signs is okay. So, I want him to come back to form.
Okay.
We'll see.
Cool.
Well, the last thing I'll mention, this is really quick because it's just not a whole lot to say with it. I'm just kind of excited. Were you a fan of the film The Rocketeer when it came out back in the 80s or early, almost 90?
I liked it okay. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I have seen it. And
I'm a big fan of the 1930s and 40s era movies set back in that time period. That's why I was a big fan of the first Captain America movie, because I loved all the period setting around World War II, just that time period in general. So I love The Rocketeer just because it embraced that time period so well. Well, as Disney is ought to do these days, they're making a sequel.
Got you.
But I will stress, it is a true sequel. It's not a reboot.
Oh, really?
And it is going to be a sequel where it's going to take place 6 years after the first movie, which if you plot it out, I think the first movie took place in like the late 30s, 1938.
But it's a different person being the Rocketeer, though.
Well, here's the description they've released.
Because that's why I thought it was a reboot.
Yeah, the new movie will pick up 6 years after the first movie. Cliff, who was the main character in the first movie, is off fighting the Nazis, and he's disappeared, which is what leads to a young African-American woman pilot to strap on the famous jetpack. I love the fact that they're making it a sequel and not a reboot and not a modernization of it or anything like that. It's still 1944. This is going to be going on during World War II.
Okay.
And they've got a logical reason why Cliff would not be there anymore, with the war going on.
Right.
Love it. I think it's great. So if they can keep that same charm of that time period, and my only fear is I just don't want them to go so high CGI and so, because that really could ruin it. I mean, they kept it fairly practical with the first version. So, but they're calling this one The Rocketeers, because I assume there'll be multiple ones. So anyway, I'm excited. I think that sounds fun. I'm on board. I'm just happy that they're keeping it period specific and not trying to modernize it or,
It is interesting to me. Excuse me. I like the original film, but the fact that they're deciding to do a sequel of something like that, it's just probably so I would think so few people remember it, or there's really not a lot of fondness for them to. Yeah, I'm just.
I think there's enough people that remember it and probably even have revisited it in the last 20 years and really appreciate it. So it's a good film. I think it was Joe Johnson that directed it. So
who's the actress that's playing the?
They haven't said.
They haven't said. Okay.
Hopefully, it's like an unknown. I hope it's just a young actress we're not really familiar with. That would be a lot of fun. So. Yeah, it was Joe Johnson, which I believe Joe Johnson also did the first Captain America movie. So that's probably that connective tissue there I like so much with that. So that's our news. So a lot of interesting projects going on, some films to be checking out over the next year. And we'll keep you up to date on all those as they continue to progress and develop. So now the last part of our show where we do have our recommendations for the episode. This is where Chris and I both pick out one film, or in my situation, a little bit of a cheat, something that you can watch online that we are going to recommend for people to check out. And something that you can find, something that either is old and you need to revisit, or maybe it's new, but we just haven't had a chance to discuss it on the show yet. But we both want to recommend people check out. So Chris, what do you have to share with us today?
My film is going to be a film called Boy, and it's from 2010. And I believe it was the first... or it was one of his first features that was done by Taika Waititi. This same gentleman, we reviewed one of his movies.
Not The Boy, about the doll that kills people.
No.
Just Boy.
Just Boy.
I got it.
Boy, and it's 2010. And I think it was one of Taika Waititi's first. And he's the same guy who did What We Do in the Shadows. He did a comedy with one of the guys from Flight of the Conchords called Eagle versus Shark. He was also, I guess, in What We Do in the Shadows. But Boy is a New Zealand coming-of-age comedy / drama. And I really liked it, and it reminded me there's a film coming out this year. It came out, I think, in New Zealand earlier this year, but it's coming out now called Hunt for the Wilder People.
Right.
And that is also a New Zealand kind of a coming-of-age story with Sam Neill. Oddly enough, between the two, I actually prefer Boy.
Interesting.
And I think Boy is not that well known. It's on Apple iTunes, it's on Netflix. But I really liked it, and it's coming of age for this boy is actually the name of the title character. I mean, he has another name, but he goes by Boy. That's just like what he's called. And he has an estranged father who comes back and tries to like get back in with the boy, and it's really just an interesting movie. The tone is really interesting. Taika Waititi plays the dad. And they do some of these fantasy sequences. It takes place back in 1984. So there's all this kind of like retro stuff going on. And the boy, the 11-year-old boy, is obsessed with Michael Jackson. And they do some fun. It's kind of like he starts having these fantasy sequences where his dad is Michael Jackson. And they do like a Beat It thing. And then they also do like a Billie Jean thing. But it kind of like brings you into the movie, like what's happening in the movie. It's kind of odd to explain, but I really liked it. And there's outside those sequences, the movie's pretty straightforward. There are some things where a boy has a brother who believes that he has special powers and can make things happen by like, moving his hand a certain way, or he'll do little drawings that are animated on the screen. It's just, it kind of has, in some senses, kind of a Michel Gondry type deal to it in a way. But I think you can tell from this first film, or 2010, that Taika Waititi did, that he's talented. And he kind of has a unique sense of humor that then comes to fruition in things like What We Do in the Shadows. What makes me excited, too, is that this gentleman, along with the aforementioned Chris Hemsworth, is going to be Thor Ragnarok, which, like I said, I like Chris Hemsworth. I like the Thor movies. And I didn't think I would, because I think he's kind of a boring Marvel character. But I do like him. The fact that Taika Waititi is doing the next Thor movie is bizarre to me. And unfortunately, just like with Warcraft, I'm excited about it. Hopefully it won't be critically derided like the Warcraft movie is. But I'm excited to see what he does with the third Thor movie. I think it could be interesting, and I wonder if he'll get a chance to do any humor, or whether it'll strictly be, which is more of what I'm imagining, kind of like a huge action movie, because I think most of the action takes place in Asgard, from what I'm understanding. It's kind of like a doomsday apocalypse type things happens in Asgard, and so Thor has to go there and try to like make sure everything doesn't blow up or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Thor is like my least favorite of all the Marvel. I mean, all superhero films. I'm just bored by Thor in general.
I really liked the first Thor movie.
You?
The second one was Dark World or whatever, wasn't as good.
Yeah. But I am interested in seeing this guy direct that. I thought that was a real surprise when his name came out, of saying, he's going to direct it. I hope he adds some personality to the film. That's what I really want.
Well, and if nothing else, maybe just like Mr. Duncan Jones, he's going to get a lot of money to do it. And then he can make a next project after that.
And go off and do what he wants to do after that.
That'll be even better. So either way, I would recommend people checking out Boy, and then possibly you might consider looking forward to the Thor movie. So we'll see.
Could be. All right. So, okay, mine is I'm going to call it a film.
Okay.
But it's a like 7.5 hour film.
Oh.
It's a miniseries on Netflix.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's a series. It's 8 episodes, but it's it's a little shorter series than other ones we've seen. Stranger Things. Have you seen this yet?
I have not, but I've heard really good things about it. Okay. And apparently, I'm about to hear some more.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up.
Have you seen all 8 episodes?
I've seen 7 of 8.
Okay.
My family and I are eagerly waiting tonight to watch the 8th one together.
Had they already announced that they're doing a second season?
I have not seen that announced yet.
Okay.
This only came out 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Right.
So if you were to take a typical PG-13 low-budget horror movie from the mid-'80s,
okay,
add in a little bit of E.T., a little bit of Goonies, a little bit of Poltergeist, basically the Spielberg films of the 80s we all grew up with, and mix them all together, you get this show. It is 8 episodes on Netflix, all available now. Basically, the premise is there's a young boy that disappears very mysteriously, and his mother, a police chief, and his buddies, his friends, all must confront terrifying forces to get him back. I'm not going to say too much.
Where is this rated? You say you're watching it with your family.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's a PG-13. It's got some moments of horror that are, again, like what you would expect from a mid-'80s, low-budget horror movie.
Because with Netflix series, kind of like Orange is the New Black or House of Cards, they tend to skew
Now this one,
way more
I'm
adult.
watching with the boys. There's a few moments where the kids are a little freaked out, and there's some profanity, throughout, but nothing more than we hear in the Goonies. I mean, I watched the Goonies a few months ago with the boys, and I was shocked at how much profanity was in that film that I did not remember.
Like you were saying, you feel this is a PG-13 as opposed to like an R.
It's a higher PG-13, but I don't feel like it's an R.
Okay.
So my boys are really enjoying it. So we're all having a good time watching it. It's primarily kid actors. There's 4 or 5 kids in it that drive most of the story. There's a few teenage actors in it. Winona Ryder is one of the few adults that has a leading role.
Is she the mom?
She is the mom.
Okay.
She plays a very frantic, very kind of wigged out mother, and she does it pretty well.
Okay.
She's irritating, but she's supposed to be irritating. That's kind of the role she's playing.
Gotcha.
David Harbour, who I don't know anything about, plays Jim Hopper to lead a sheriff in town. And then you've got Matthew Modine as a Dr. Martin Brenner, and that's all I'm going to say about him because he's kind of a mysterious character. Basically, you've got monsters, you've got weird alternate dimensions, you've got great science fiction. Yes, some of the plot is a little hokey and some of it's a little cheesy, but also I think the directors are very intentionally wanting this to feel like a very throwback 80s type of show. Even the title sequence of every episode is very much, you can almost see the VHS grain in the background and the words coming in with this music. The music throughout the whole series is very 80s. It's a really good show. Okay. Very well done show. I'm having a great time with it. I'm 7 out of 8 episodes in. I got one more. I could come back next week and say, nope, never mind. The whole series sucks because the 8th episode was bad. I don't think it's going to happen.
7/8 was good.
Yeah,
so
I know, but it is one of these things where the last episode has to be good to button up the whole show.
Okay.
But I think there's some really good young actors in this series that we're probably going to see do more things going from here.
Okay.
And it's written and directed by, they call themselves the Duffer Brothers. Don't know anything about them. I looked at their IMDb bios. They've done a couple low-budget horror films before, but nothing major. So they're credited as the Duffer Brothers as writing and directing this, creating the whole series.
Gotcha.
And it's a lot of fun. It's really good.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. And that's, to me, it's a close enough to a film that I'm going to use as a recommendation. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts after the first couple episodes.
Okay.
So, yep. Okay, so that is our show today. So we recommended the films Boy from 2010 and the TV show Stranger Things on Netflix. 8 episodes available to watch now. We talked about Ghostbusters. We talked about Star Trek Beyond. We talked about news items all across the board. So a lot of good stuff in the show today. And Chris, if people are interested in having a dialogue with us or just kind of connecting with us further, what are some different ways they could do that?
Easiest way is probably to drop us a line at info@themesh.tv. That's our email address. Just put our Footcandle Films in the subject line. Tell us what you liked, didn't like, what movie we should review, or how we got one of our reviews terribly wrong. Tell me how Ghostbusters was the most amazing movie of all time. Tell me about that. Or tell me how I'm really wrong about Kate McKinnon. And suggest something that I can watch that will improve my impression of her. I don't know.
I'm going to send you some link for some skits. I'm going to send you a link for some skits on China Not Live. That'll change your opinion of that.
Fair enough. There's also, at The Mesh, we have back catalog of all of our shows. You can catch up on other episodes. You can look back to our discussion of Star Trek Into Darkness, or there's also the episode where we discussed After Earth. Both of those were reviewed. And you can probably guess what our reviews were. But
nice throwback there,
you can
Chris.
check out those episodes as well. In iTunes, which is one of the many places you can get our podcast as well. You can watch it on the website, mesh.tv, or you can go to iTunes. If you happen to be in iTunes and you're so inclined to give us a rating or to write a review, either one of those gets us, more listeners and stuff, which obviously we dig the listeners. So, and it costs you nothing. And since the podcast costs you nothing, hey, why not do us a solid and help us out? We'd really appreciate it.
That would be awesome.
It's a thing. Also, we would be remiss if we didn't tell you, obviously, we're a Footcandle Film Society, kind of started the podcast. We have our film festival. It's our second annual film festival, September 23rd to the 25th. We have gotten a lineup together. We're going to be showing some really good films. be on the lookout for tickets. Will be on sale to the general public in
mid-August, about August 15th or so.
So, and we've already got word back from some of the directors and people involved that they're going to be able to travel for the festival. So that's always cool as well.
Yep.
So
it's definitely going to be good. And actually, if you want to see the films that are on at the festival, go to our website for the festival, footcandlefilmfestival.com. There you can actually see a list of all the films that are being shown, get a little sense of what they look like. And then you got to come August 15th, you'll be able to go and actually buy tickets. Right now, you could go, by the time you listen to the show, you'll be able to actually go and just see the films and get a sense of the schedule. August 15th, tickets will go on sale to the general public. So our Footcandle members, if you're a member and happy to be listening, you should have gotten notice about an email about tickets going on sale a little earlier for you. One of the perks of membership. So we hope to see you guys all at the festival come September 23rd. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks everybody for listening. Got any feedback or thoughts, please get in touch with us and let us know. Next time we get together, we'll review a couple more movies and talk about some other movie news and recommendations. And then, of course, we'll keep you posted as we get closer and closer to the film festival. Thanks everybody for listening.
See you in the ticket line.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.